Hello and welcome to another amazing part of What If Garp Changed the Future? Professional Ranter wrote this amazing story. Please support them. Don't forget to like, sub, and leave a comment. Now let's dive in. Tom swam through the water, weaving through the sea mines. He came up to the wall and swam around it, avoiding the lights that shine down. Soon he found a grate. Looking within, he didn't see any guards. Swimming back through the field of sea mines, he climbed back onto the deck of the Granting Wish, the ship hidden away from the sight of the watchtowers on the wall surrounding Roanoke. There's a grate. I can break it off to get her in, but I can't fit in. Garp turned his attention away from the vacation home for a moment. Okay, they keep the controls to deactivate the mines in the gatehouse. Get those deactivated at least and we can crash the gates down. You ready, Alvia? Alvia flexed her shoulders as Lami stepped away from her. Ready as I can be. Let's get this done with. Kazan handed her a flare gun sealed away in a bag. The bag should keep it dry enough for you to still use in case you get into trouble. Or you can use it to signal that the mines are down. Be safe. Alvia smiled at him. I'll be as safe as I can. Don't be afraid to kill any of the guards and don't try to go further in. Just get the way clear for us to get in, Garp instructed her. Alvia nodded. Right, okay Tom, let's go. Tom nodded and grabbed a hold of her and jumped into the water. Letting her take a few deep breaths, she held it and he went below the water and swam through the sea mines back to the grate. He had her wrap her arms around a part of it while he went to another and began to pull on it. It resisted for several moments before it began to bend. Soon he managed to bend a hole big enough for Alvia and he ushered her in. Alvia swam through the water as her lungs burned. It was dark within until she saw some light coming through a small grate. Swimming to it, she grabbed it with her hands and pushed up, pushing the grate out and pulling herself up. She let out a loud gasp as she let air back into her lungs. Pulling herself fully in, she looked around. It was a group shower room, empty thankfully, which made sense given how late it was in the night. Alvia stood up fully and put the grate back in its place before pulling her mask up. Walking to the doorway, she peeked out and looked around the hallway, seeing someone coming down the hallway. She ducked behind the cover and listened to their steps as they closed in. Slowly unsheathing her knife from behind her, she held it at the ready. The steps stopped outside the doorway for a moment. Someone must have taken a shower before me. Hope they didn't waste all the hot water. I would rather have some left to use on that new slave. She's quite a looker, but her attitude needs some adjustment. Maybe St. Rose Ward will choose me to have some fun with one of the slaves while he watches today. The guard laughed lecherously as he took his armor off. As he stepped into the showers, Alvia jumped out and slit his throat. The guard gripped at his throat, trying to stop the bleeding, but that left his gut open for Alvia to carve it up. Pushing him to the ground, she gave a final stab to the heart before turning on the showers, ensuring that hot water ran from all the heads. Walking into the hallway, Alvia briefly considered putting the armor on to better sneak through the halls, but it was too big for her. It would be blatantly obvious that she wasn't wearing her own armor. Stretching her observation hockey out a bit around her, she walked through the hallway. Keeping an eye out for any transmitter snails, she kept her knife at the ready. If she wasn't on a time crunch, she would try to knock out the guards she came across and hide them somewhere. Blood could show even with the red carpeted floor, but it was best to only attack at night, utilize the shadows. Coming across another guard who was turned around, Alvia grabbed them and slit their throat before shoving them into a nearby alcove behind the statue of an ugly man. Moving through the hall, she sensed a group incoming and ducked into another alcove behind a statue. Waiting as the steps moved past the statue until they became a distant sound, Alvia let out the breath she was holding. Returning to her path, she wove through the halls until she saw the door to gatehouse. Looking around the corner, she observed the two guards standing at either side. The architecture of this place cares more for beauty and vanity than security. Getting into the room wouldn't reasonably be a problem. Ventilation would be cared about more to ensure a cool or warm air, meaning I could use that, avoid the guards. But I'd need to waste time to find one. They'd be focused around areas actually used by the saint. They wouldn't care for their servants or guards. So, I have to go through that door, damn it. Alvia used her knowledge as an archaeologist to determine the best path, only to come to the conclusion that she despised. The length of the corridor was too long for her. The guards would be able to notice her before she could get in proper range, even with her unique ability to be invisible to observation hockey. Fine then, Alvia filled her free hand with one of her eskrima sticks. She looked around the corner one more time. She observed how the guards shifted. The one on the left has extra armor around their right leg. Most likely they just recovered from an injury and are using extra padding while building it back up to even with their other leg. The one on the right has a bandage on their neck, a recent injury most likely. Other than that, there's nothing I can use against them. But neither of them keeps their hands on their blades, so that gives me a few extra moments to attack before they can. Okay. Alvia pulled her hood up and ran around the corner. The guard with the injury on their neck let out a gasp and Alvia threw her eskrima stick at them. It slammed into their injury and blood began leak through the bandage. The guard with the recovered leg injury turned to look at their comrade in concern, while not going for their blade. Alvia jumped up and slammed her foot down on their recovered leg, forcing it to bend unnaturally and break again. Before he could scream out, she stabbed him in the neck while punching the other guard's helmet off, then grabbing them by hair and kneeing them in the face before stabbing them in the neck and opening the insides of their neck to the air. Letting their hair go, she kneeled down to the door's lock. Peering into it, she looked into the gatehouse. As expected, there were a few guards within, but she could handle this. I have to, she thought to herself as she picked up her thrown eskrima stick. Alvia opened the door and rushed to the nearest guard, stabbing them in the throat while kicking the door closed behind her. As the other guards turned to her in surprise, she ran up to the next guard and hit them hard across the chin with her eskrima stick, rattling his brain in his skull. Another guard rushed at her with their blade drawn, then thrust it forward, but Alvia dodged to the side, and it stabbed into their comrade who was still disoriented. While the guard was still from their shock of stabbing their comrade, Alvia stabbed them in the neck. The last two guards rushed at her. She dodged back as one brought their sword down on where she had been standing. It stuck in the ground as the other thrust their blade at her, but she deflected it with her eskrima stick to the side. Dragging along the blade as she brought herself closer, she stabbed the guard in the neck. The other guard ripped his blade out of the ground and growled at her. He got ready to run at her, but Alvia threw her eskrima stick at him and he deflected it with his blade, only for her thrown knife that she had thrown right after to land in his neck. Alvia watched coldly as the guard choked on his blood. She walked up to him and ripped her knife out, then went up to the guard that had been stabbed by his comrade and slashed his throat, ensuring that he didn't get up and surprise her. Walking to the controls, she observed them for a moment. First the mines, then the gate. Okay. Not too many things on this. Tom is gonna hate that he doesn't label shit like them. Okay, this button here is covered. Alvia lifted the cover and pushed the button. Looking out the window, she observed as one of the spotlights shined over the water, the shape of the mines was gone from them. Returning to the controls, she looked at the gears that connected the gate and pulled the lever. The room rumbled slightly as the gates began to open. Pushing the windows open, she took out the flare gun from the bag and aimed it high and pulled the trigger. It arced through the night sky, painting it red. The granting wish immediately came out from its hiding place and rushed to the open gates. Alvia stepped up to the window and jumped out as the granting wish neared, and Garp's spectral lion raced through the air, and she landed on its back. The lion let out a roar as it ran alongside the ship. Good job, Nemia! Garp yelled out. Dragon and the members of the army that had helped them during their many days of attack during Kuma's hunt for Bikori let out a battle cry as they jumped from the ship to the docks and began fighting the guards. Kuma, show them what it means to anger you. Kuma let out a growl as he stood up from where he was sitting. Thank you, Captain. Suddenly to everyone, Kuma was replaced by a great bear of the stars. He let out a roar and launched himself at the force. His attack sent the guards flying as everyone fought around him. He was the focal point of the storm that this battle was. Kazan, be at the ready to take down any enemy ships that appear. Bogard, fly to the slave quarters and protect them. Saris, lay down fire and tear them apart. Orchard, Apollo, Tom, guard the ship. Yggdrasil, Gion, you're with me, we're going after the saint. Garp laid out the orders as he jumped from the ship, and the others moved to follow their orders. Nemia ran beside him, and Alvia jumped off from her back and began to run alongside him and Gion, who had caught up. How are you doing? I'm fine, like you taught me go for the neck when needing to go fast. Remind to thank Kazan for training me how to fight later, Alvia said as they ran into the main palace. Nemia tore through the groups of guards that tried to stop them, roaring with the might of a beast of legend that she was. One of the guards said that Saint Roseward is here. Gion unsheathed her blade and cut down a guard that had hidden in an alcove. Perfect. Bikori said that he had sent Ginny to Roseward, so even if she's not here we can question him. The trio found themselves before a large ornate door. Garp, can you get me up to that vent? Alvia asked as she pointed at the said vent that was above the door. Garp summoned Nemia. Nemia can get you up there. You focus on getting to the saint if they have any guards that keep us busy. Nemia carried Alvia up to the vent and returned to Garp's side once she had gotten into it. You ready, Gion? As I can be. Gion steadied her hands on her blade as Garp kicked the doors off. What is this? Saint Roseward demanded as he stood up from his seat. Maman Bridget and a marine looked to where the door had once been. Kill those intruders. Saint Roseward, We are here only to collect the property of Elder Saint Saturn and a devil fruit in your possession. We were even given the power to strike you down if need be. You will stop trying to get something out of this." The Marine spoke. "Mamanga, out of our way," Garp demanded. Recently appointed Admiral Mamanga turned back to Garp. "Garp, let us leave with the slave and the devil fruit and you may have this man. As he has 2 heirs his family can continue without him, and he's caused too many problems for us." "What? How dare you? I am a celestial dragon, a god. You will do as I say, you worthless Marine." Roseward pointed his gun at Mamanga. "Not happening. You can leave now with nothing but your lives, or you resist and you'll deal with us." Guion glared at Mamanga. No offer to have us join your side?" Maman Bridget asked with a playful smirk. "Tell you what, Roseward, you get to keep your position as a saint and your life. In exchange you give Vegapunk a bunch of your slaves for experiments, alongside Elder Saint Saturn's requested property, and you don't die to the Dragon Slayer and shame your family. You owe me big time for having to play this guy." Roseward lowered his gun for a moment. "Give me 10 devil fruits to use and we have a deal." Unlike his children, Roseward had done deals such as these and had a small amount of patience for them. It had granted his family even more power among the Celestials and far more pleasure. "I'll see what I can do about that." "Okay Mamanga, we got what we need, let's handle these idiots." Bridget turned fully to the intruders with Mamanga. "Let's see how well you two do against an admiral and a warlord. Time to test out Garp, see if Sky's theory holds any tune." Garp rushed at Bridget and tried to punch, but she dodged to the side. "Guion, Mamanga is yours to handle, the warlord is mine." "I'll join you soon, Maman Bridget," Mamanga said as he unsheathed his blade and caught Guion's as she tried to attack him. "Such a disappointment. You would have made a fine admiral if you had not deserted your post and betrayed the Marines." Garp threw several rapid punches at Bridget, but he dodged them all. "Ooh, now this a beat I can move to, let's see if you're able to remix it and beat me." She gave him a wide smile as she unsheathed her blade and slashed at him, cutting his arm. She began to dance around his attacks, cutting him at every slight opening she found. "Unfortunately for you, you're too on key, so predictable." She saw Garp smirk for a moment before Nemia appeared behind her and slashed her back. "Fuck." Garp punched her 3 times and sent her flying through several walls. "Thanks for showing me what you can do, now let's see how you do against 2 dance partners." Garp ran through the hole straight for her while behind him Guion and Mamanga exchanged blows. He punched at her some more and she managed to dodge as she recovered from the attacks. "Where the hell did you come from?" Bridget leaned back as a punch sailed over him, then fell backwards and kicked up, catching Garp under his chin and sending him flying above. Officially New World. Taking a swig from her bottle she blew out a torrent of flames, which also took out the camera snails. "The truth, however, is from a pantheon. Sorry to meet you like this, but there are some things we have to do that Luffy's wish can't give you." Garp's eyes widened. "Let me guess, music? Why the hell are you working for the world government as a warlord? Access to some things for sabotage?" Music rushed forward and stabbed at Garp, but Nemia head-butt her out of the way. "Damn it. And there are some events from the old timeline we have to ensure happen. Look, once you meet Ocean we'll explain everything. For now, just fight me like this is real." He rushed forward and breathed out another inferno of flames at Garp, who jumped over him and kicked him in his injuries. "Oh, that's cheap." Garp tackled her through the wall and punched her several times before she stabbed him in the shoulder and kicked him off. He went through a wall and jumped back to his feet just in time to dodge to the side as she tried to stab him again, before she changed the direction of her blade and slashed him along his chest. Garp grabbed her arm and pulled, slamming her into the wall like a club. He lifted his foot and slammed it down, but she rolled out of the way and kicked the back of his leg. Garp fell to one knee, but he leaned forward and Nemia used his back as a bounce board and bit into her shoulder. Music let out a yell and punched Nemia. "Ow, fuck me, that cat is hard as steel." She waved her hand in pain as Nemia let go of her shoulder and back up. Nemia is at her strongest, so she's got a close connection to Garp's soul. Who were his previous lives? Garp punched her in the face and sent her flying. "Don't you dare hit her." "Yup, that limits the list. Not that many souls connected to Nemia that have that close connection to her. They forget she had invincible skin and try and defend her when she's attacked." She rubbed her head as she got back on her feet. Only for Garp and Nemia to both punch her and send her through the ceiling. "Did I just get punched by a lion?" Music yelled out before changing his melody and growing a pair of wings and gave a few flaps to steady herself. Looking over the small island she saw how the army was winning, and how a few marine ships had been impaled upon spears of ice. "How long has it been since I saw a crew like Garp's? There's something familiar about each of their melodies. The instrumentals remind me of people, but where have I heard them?" "Don't lose focus." Garp yelled as Nemia flew him up to her and punched her into the ground. Asshole. Music yelled out with a laugh. Fuck, how many times did war do that to us? I've missed this feeling, a battle melody like this. I haven't heard it since he and the others entered into the cycle of reincarnation. Let's see if we can't improve it. With a wide smile, Music adjusted her melody again and grew into a giant. Let's see how well you do against this Garp. Bringing down her larger blade, Garp jumped off of Nemia and began to run up her arm. I've fought against giants before and I'm still standing. Don't think that this will be any different for you. He jumped off her shoulder and punched her cheek. Music began to fall, and as she did so she reverted back to her original form. He reverted my melody? There's less than 10 souls that can do that. Regrowing wings, she slowed her fall and looked up. Okay, we need to get out of here before he realizes where I fell. Running through the palace, she returned to the main room and found Mamanga and Gion struggling against each other in a blade lock. We need to get out here now. He can revert my melody. What? What do you mean? Mamanga asked as he pushed Gion away. He used his haki, forced my melody to revert to its original. We need to leave. Roseward, where's the slave and devil fruit? Bridget took a swig from her bottle and breathed fire at Gion. My safe, it's right there. He pointed to a painting. Suddenly someone started laughing. Thanks for making the search easier. Garp stood in the doorway with a cocky smirk. But it was pitch black behind him. So, you gonna keep hanging up there? Alvia jumped down from where she was hiding and broke Rosward's dome and put her knife to his neck. You two can leave with your lives, but the saint is ours. She glared the two down. Or you can deal with him. Garp pointed behind him and the darkness breathed out a cloud. Kuma's eyes glowed red and they could only see a bear. You guys really pissed him off. Do you want to see what Lasky and Bikori saw before they died? His smirk widened into a full-blown smile. Lasky? He's dead. Mamanga asked in shock. You know, I heard Bikori was made a saint before he died, so you got another dragon slayer right here. Now you two walk away or die here. Garp glared the two down. Music could only keep her eyes on Kuma. Death and Sky weren't kidding. That's the melody of Callisto's rage. Like I could ever forget it. Mamanga, we need to run right now. But our deal. Roseward yelled out. Don't worry, you just won't be getting the devil fruits. Bridget disappeared from sight and kicked Alvia away, then grabbed Roseward and stretched his arm and grabbed Mamanga. The three then disappeared in a loud melody. Garp breathed out a sigh of relief. You okay, Alvia? Alvia got back up with a groan. I'm fine, just get that painting down and let's get the safe open. Before any of them could move, Kuma had rushed for the painting and tore it off the wall. He tried to tear the safe door off the wall, but he suddenly grew weak. See stone, no, not now. Kuma's eyes rolled up and the adrenaline that had kept him going for the past several days finally gave out and he collapsed. Get us a medic in here. Garp yelled out while Gion ran up to Kuma to check on him. He's awake, he's just finally run out of fumes, Gion said as a medic ran in along with Dragon and Ivankov. Where's Roseward? Dragon asked as Garp walked over to the safe door to inspect it. Alvia sighed. Got away, that new warlord Maman Bridget was here. She's got some serious power dash. Garp corrected. When he felt the looks the others gave him, looked behind at them. They're gender fluid, they kept switching between female and male while I was fighting them. When they left, they identified as he. They seem to have a connection with Vegapunk, although I don't know what that could be exactly. Their devil fruit seems to let them change their body as well as having other abilities, sort of like an upgraded version of your fruit, Ivankov. You saw them turn into a giant. We'll need to keep an eye on any news regarding them. If we can figure out what their fruit is, we'll be able to better go up against them in the future. You're talking like you intend to fight them again, Ivankov muttered as she walked up next to Garp to look at the safe door. I intend to go after Vegapunk. He makes a lot of things for the world government and I'm hoping to steal some things for the army to give them an advantage, Garp said as he jumped up and grabbed onto the highest hinge and pulled. It broke off the wall and as Garp fell he kept a tight grip on the door and began to pull the safe door out of the wall. Everyone got out of the way as he brought it down with a loud crash. Kuma forced himself to his feet and into the safe. Ginny? Is anyone in here? Right here. Please get us out of here. Someone yelled out further within the safe. Kuma stumbled slightly before running to where the voice had come and he found a large group of people held in individual cages. Please get us out of these cages. Kuma almost ignored them to run around to look for Ginny, but that wasn't the kind of person he was and began to free them all. Did they bring a woman with pink hair here? The man helped one of his fellow slaves to sit against a wall. Yeah, they took her further in. Can you help us get these collars off? We'll handle that, Kuma, go find her. Dragon, come help get these collars off. Ivankov said as he prepared his devil fruit to begin taking the collars off, like he's done so many times before. I'll handle looking for the devil fruit, Gion said as Garp walked past Kuma. Come on Kuma, let's go, Garp said as Kuma followed after him. They walked further into the safe, past various riches and artifacts until they came to a smaller safe door. Garp ripped it open and within they found only one woman. Ginny? Kuma yelled out and reached in carefully picked her up and brought her out. He lifted her up to his face. She looked almost like she had when he had found her dead with Bonnie, just without the disease that had been eating away at her. Ginny? Kuma started to cry as he looked at her, breathing and alive again. Let me carry her Kuma, you're gonna collapse soon. Garp held out his arms and Kuma carefully put her in them before he collapsed to his knees then to his side. Ginny shifted in Garp's arms as her eyes forced themselves open. Kikumichi? Kuma gave Ginny a wide smile. Ginny, I'm so happy to see you. With Saturn. Saturn sat on a sofa with Sengoku nearby. Have they reported in that they have retrieved my property? No, Elder Saint Saturn, Sengoku reported as he worked through his paperwork. Since we got their report that they had arrived at Roanoke, Sengoku held back from hissing at the reveal of Roanoke's true fate. We have not heard anything since. Suddenly Bridget appeared with Roseward and Mamanga. Why the fuck didn't you tell me Garp could undo devil fruit effects with his hockey? Bridget yelled at Sengoku, slamming his fist on the Fleet Admiral's desk. He can? Must have been something he picked up after turning traitor, Sengoku hummed as he continued working. Where is my property? Saturn asked, glaring Roseward and Mamanga down. He didn't expect Bridget to fully succeed given she's not truly part of the world government as a warlord, hence his request for a high-ranking Marine to help with the retrieval. You can blame Roseward for the loss of your property, Elder Saint Saturn. When we arrived, he decided to attempt to negotiate more rewards for him holding your property which delayed us long enough that we weren't able to even get near them which would have allowed Baron Bridget to retrieve them along with the two of us, Mamanga reported, getting onto one knee and bowing to Saturn. I beg your forgiveness for my failure to retrieve your property. You should have cut him down the moment he tried to get more than what was promised to him. Kill him now, Saturn ordered. Mamanga stood up and unsheathed his sword as Roseward fell to the floor. Wait. What do you think you're doing? Don't kill him yet, Bridget said as she turned away from Sengoku. He made a deal with me, he hasn't yet paid his dues. And just what did he promise you? Saturn asked, annoyed at the disruption. 100 of his slaves for Vegapunk to use for a new experiment with devil fruits, Bridget said. A new experiment? What is he going to be creating? Saturn asked, his mood quickly shifting. Something seeds, it's in the early stages but the main thing he has determined is that he won't be able to feed them to any weapons, it has to be people, Bridget said. He is saying that it should allow you to give even more Marines powers that should help quell this crisis. He's also got a few other projects, including the Pacifista project. We need enough people to use with testing to make sure some of these things work properly. Saturn rubbed his beard. Hitchum, you will get all of Roseward's slaves then. What? Those are my slaves. I won't give a single one of them to this creature. Roseward yelled out in rage only to let out a whimper when Saturn pointed his cane at him. You will be silent, Roseward. All of your slaves that you own right now will be given to Vegapunk and you will be allowed to keep your life. You will also be banned from building any collections like your Pirate Captain collection for 5 years, am I understood? Saturn's glare pierced Roseward who bowed to his elder in submission. Good, the slaves will be sent to Egghead Island within the month. Be ready for their arrival. Bridget nodded. All right then, I'm off. With a loud melody Bridget disappeared. In heaven, music appeared within their home, decorated with hundreds of instruments and pictures of who had used them. Bookcases containing history books, displaying small instruments, lined their walls. I'm assuming you saw what you wanted? Sky sat up from the sofa he was laying on. How many souls do you know that can revert your melody? Less than 10. Sky looked up at the ceiling. And what if you include souls from our pantheon? Music leaned over her sofa and looked Sky in the eye. Do you think Garp is a reincarnation from the group of us that entered in the cycle? Garp stepped out of Roseward's palace and looked up at the full moon, his eyes glowing red in the light of it. Suspicions for now. Callisto being discovered to have entered in the cycle means that there are others from the war who entered into the cycle. So how many other souls from back then had the power to revert your melody? Garp let out a growl and walked to where they were keeping the captured guards. You're going to tell me everything you know about what Roseward did here for the 5 elders. The moon illuminating him made him appear taller and more muscular. Nemia wrapped her front paws around his shoulders and her head next to his, letting out a vicious growl. 3 Buddha, Lilith and War. Those three come to mind right now that were able to do that back then that didn't get the chance to. The prisoners cowered away as Garp entered into the building and closed the door behind him, leaving them in near total darkness except for the glow that came off of Nemia and Garp. It's interesting to think that Kuma's wish created that time loop, Sky said as he stood up. You sent it back with the blueprints for the Rise fruit hundreds of years, which started us on finding out how to hide from the imprisoned wish what we do. It was started by something and changes with the changes to the timeline most likely. It's been something we've always had, Music pointed out as she took her own seat. But it doesn't matter now, it's properly fulfilled and now we wait to see what fully comes of it. But you know what they're going to be planning once they figure out what the Marines kept there alongside Rosward's vacation home. Things are moving along well, but Garp has 2 more years before the oldest head out from Fusha to become pirates, then 3 more before the youngest. He's running out of time to finish things and save Luffy from his fate. Sengoku looked at the maps on the wall with a strained expression. To Kong and Akainu they thought he was trying to hold back his anger while Tsuru could tell that he was holding in his laughter. So, from the various reports that recently came in we know we have lost around 55 bases, including a few Cipher Pole bases that were hidden from the public, including the vital one at Black Knight Tempest Cap. Furthermore, the Revolutionary Army apparently cleaned out a lot of traitors. Finally, they attacked the Roanoke vacation home of St. Roseward, nearly killing him. That doesn't factor in the patrols that the Granting Wish attacked. Any questions? Damn Garp, you always know how to make yourself and your people known. Like you could ever have been quiet about any of this? Sengoku covered his mouth to hide his snicker. When will we be able to rebuild the bases? Kong asked while Akainu took a deep puff of his cigar. We can't, Tsuru answered for Sengoku. The attackers, Sarah's Victoria, Kazan, Bartholomew Kuma, Bogard, and Guion, did something that destabilized the islands. To try and build on them would cause them to collapse. We'll have to wait a few years before we'll be able to build anything. Plus, reports are still coming about destroyed bases. These are just for the ones that came in before this meeting. As Tsuru said that a Marine came in and began to mark more locations while another handed some reports to Sengoku. Case in point, we know of 3 high-profile individuals that are dead. Agent Lasky of Cipher Pole 9 and St. Bikori were killed by Bartholomew Kuma. Agent Alpha of Cipher Pole 8 was killed by Guion. We were able to determine these based on the methods used to destroy the bases and destabilize the islands. We are still working on determining how many people we've lost. Damn it, Akainu cursed. We'll need to increase patrols in those areas so that the pirates aren't able to get a foothold. We won't be able to, Sengoku shot down the suggestion. The Granting Wish, manned by Garp, Tom, Orchard, and Apollo, attacked several Marine patrols. Water 7 has only just officially built their dismantling yard and it's working to be able to relieve the workloads of the other yards so that they can focus on their backlog of work orders, including the many new Marine ships we commissioned from them. A Marine let out a whine and held their head in their hands, and we just figured out the new bounties of the Constellation crew. Now we got to calculate new ones all over again. Nothing about this is ideal. You'll be receiving a comprehensive report detailing all that was done during these many days of attacks once the reports stop coming in. Essentially right now, we can only do what we can and move on as we recover, Tsuru said as she let out a sigh. Kong leaned forward. What about St. Roseward? Is he okay? Sengoku narrowed his eyes. Due to the efforts of the new warlord Bridget he is. Although they lost to Garp they were able to get both the Saint and Admiral Mamanga out. Akainu grunted and bit into his cigar a bit. What is the next plan to stop Garp? We don't have a plan, Tsuru said. The original plan before Sorbet was to increase our numbers and ships, as well as the number of admirals and as it happened warlords. After Sorbet though, with the massive loss of ships, Marines, Cipher Pole 0 agents, and Mihawk defecting to the Revolutionary Army as well as the reveal of the native hunting competition and Sengoku losing to Garp, that plan was thrown out. We don't have the means to go after Garp, not before Sorbet and certainly not after. This latest string of attacks just proves it. Kong rubbed his chin in thought. Kamabaka Island. Ivankov was silent, only able to sit and stare at Kuma and Ginny who were in neighboring cots in the hospital. Kuma's arm was outstretched towards Ginny who gripped his hand tightly. How could I let this happen to her? You didn't know, Dragon said as he came in. We learned about it because Holtz died. Whoever wanted him dead could have known about his dealings, but I don't think anyone could have known just how extensive everything was. I know how close you are to them. Take your time. We're going to try to wake them soon for a proper checkup. Try talking to her then. Ivankov nodded. Thank you, Dragon. He gave her shoulder a comforting squeeze before leaving. Dragon sighed as he walked through the base. The army was hard at work figuring out the rightful owners of the various artifacts that were within Rosward's safe and giving all the slaves they had freed tattoos to cover their brands, many choosing a shooting star. Walking into the command tent, only Garp was there. So what's next? Figured I'd show you this before I get to what's next. Hancock's on the line, by the way. He pointed to an immune transponder snail, one that couldn't be eavesdropped on. Hello, Dragon, I heard your mission ended in great success, Hancock said. Teacher has decided that it is time for me to ascend, but he has an idea to further damage the world government. Teacher? Seems Dad got to her too. Dragon chuckled to himself, remembering the many Marines he had met who called Garp teacher. So what did you come up with? Thanks to our attacks against the various bases, especially the Cipher Pole bases, we were able to uncover the location of where they're storing the ammunition for buster calls, Garp revealed, pointing at the circled area on the map. It's on an island erased from all maps, except for secret few, one of which Bogart found at one of the bases he attacked. Dragon leaned forward with a smirk. And knowing you've been working to figure out where the factory is. Garp chuckled. Of course, and I did. He stood up and picking up a pointer he gestured to another circled area. Utilizing all the intel we gathered, especially from Black Knight Tempest Cap, I was able to narrow down all the possible places it could be. Once again on an island removed from nearly all maps, but also isolated from trade routes and patrols. The key intel though was the records that were with the Rise fruit. Garp stuck his thumb at the chest holding the accursed devil fruit. Records? Hancock asked. Garp smirked viciously. Those infamous records of families like Rosward who liked to make collections. He had some there on the island, including within were records of when he used the Rise fruit on his slaves. I was able to use that to narrow down the empty places on the maps to one, right here. Because this was where they normally stored it until sending it out for the Celestials to use, in order for them to not be able to take it without proper permission. And if my suspicions are true for the slaves they have making the ammunition. Dragon's eyes widened. So that's how they've been able to keep everything so secretive about it. I'd had my suspicions, but for them to keep the fruit there it makes sense. So, we take a few days to recover, wrap up any last-minute affairs, and then the three of us attack. Hancock, you of course will be taking the South Blue as your territory, Garp said. Dragon, you and a selected team will go after the storage island, while my crew will be going after the factory. Kuma will be sending the slaves to a safe island once we've ensured they won't be killed by any collars, so pick one out and give him the coordinates once it's time. This sounds reasonable, although I hope it will be enough time for Alvia to finish her search for that cave. I don't want to be ambushed in Amazon Lily because of it, Hancock muttered. Dragon nodded. I'll get to work on it. Dragon was cut off as a blur hit him and he stumbled forward. Dragon. Oh, it's so good to see you again. Ginny laughed out as Kuma ran in after her. Both were covered in bandages, but they smiled brightly. Ginny, we have to go back to the hospital, Kuma said softly, although the joy on his face was clear to anyone who looked. Come on, Kumachi. I haven't seen them in so long, let me at least give them a hug. Ginny pouted out as she hugged Kuma's neck. Garp let out a loud laugh. Well, it's nice to properly meet you, Ginny. Kuma looked to Garp. Captain, how are you recovering? Bah, nothing I haven't faced before, I'm fine. How are you doing? Garp looked at Kuma in concern. Amazing. Kuma hugged Ginny close to him. Garp chuckled. Should Bonnie be expecting a sibling? Kuma and Ginny blushed. Where is she, by the way? Ginny asked, looking for her daughter. Sorbet was attacked and she was taken hostage. We rescued her. Dragon got her a devil fruit that helped her combat her disease. We taught how to use it. Then Alvia took her to my grandkids where she'll be safe, Garp explained. Ginny wilted a bit. Oh, well, we can visit her at some point. But she quickly bounced back. So long as she's safe and I could talk to her over a snail. Kuma smiled widely at Ginny. Would you like to meet the rest of the crew? After you two go back to the hospital and get yourselves checked out, Garp instructed as he stood up and walked over and began to drag Kuma back to the hospital. Dragon watched as the three left before letting out a sigh. Of course he's adopted Kuma, I should have realized it sooner. Anyways, Hancock, we'll communicate with you in case anything major comes up that could affect the plan. Thank you, Dragon, and I will do the same, Hancock said before hanging up. Sky sat in his home, a place without a roof. He leaned back in the hammock and looked to the sky. Sky. Get down here. Shaper yelled up at him. Sky's house was upside down, allowing him to look down at the sky and observe the viewing pool in the center of their village. Sky. Hurry the fuck up. Sky rolled his shoulders and jumped down, floating to the ground below. What is it? The fuck are you doing putting music as a warlord? Shaker yelled at him after they transformed. What happens if Emu discovers them? Sky looked at Shaker with a weird expression for a second. Just some insurance to ensure some events happen for Luffy's journey, that's all. Could it be possible? He muttered to himself as he walked away. What could be possible? Shaper asked as he stormed after Sky. Don't walk away from us. Sky. Answer our questions. Amazon Lily. Alvia sighed as the granting wish docked at Amazon Lily. She immediately got off and walked up to Hancock. I know where the cave is, I finally figured it out. I'll need your help for it, come on. She grabbed and immediately began to drag her along. You don't need to drag me, I'm coming. I don't want any defense weaknesses in Amazon Lily. Hancock wrenched her arm free as Sandersonia and Marigold followed after. Where do you think it is? Marigold asked. Alvia smirked as she stomped into the forest, following along a path only she could see. It took me a while to figure it out. See, I kept thinking of it as just some sort of cave that some of your people had hidden in when Amazon Lily was invaded in the past before the Sea Kings got as big as they are now. But I was completely wrong. Wrong about what? Sandersonia asked, giving Sarah's a small wave as she followed after her sisters. I called ahead, had Elder Nyan look ahead for me. See, it was a place that your people found sanctuary in, but not just during times of invasion. It's not a cave at all. It just became like because of the many generations that passed since it was sealed up. Alvia began to chuckle like a madwoman. A temple. A temple to the Great Serpent. That's what it was all along. I figured it out while infiltrating Rosward's home. The way Nyan had described it always stuck out to me, but I couldn't figure it out until I saw that home. The description was the exact opposite of Rosward's home. Humble. Simple. Practical. That very description gave me so much trouble, but I figured it out. A temple? Hancock asked, although she leaned away as Alvia's chuckles evolved into a full-on laugh of madness. They came into a small clearing, trees had been chopped away to make it recently. Your hunch was correct, Alvia, Gloriosa said, standing next to a wall with strange markings on it. Of course I was right. For such a sacred temple they'd keep it somewhere safe so it couldn't be desecrated. Why did it never cross my mind before? A simple cave wouldn't be given such an important place among your tales, but a temple? That would be. Alvia yelled out as she stepped up to the marked wall and observed it, but their lock would have a special key as well, of course. Hancock, bring out your snakes. Hancock stepped back at Alvia's intensity, but she activated her hockey, and all 50 snakes were summoned forth. What am I supposed to have them do? Bite the wall along the markings for the little ones, and the big one bites the middle, Alvia directed as she stepped out of the way. The snakes bit into the markings and it began to glow before the wall disappeared. A hockey technique most likely, but for it to have lasted this long is no small feat. It was most likely made by a past empress who was able to summon the snakes like you. Hancock's eyes widened as the ornate temple was revealed. This was here all this time? And it looks like it's been maintained, but by who? Alvia's eyes gleamed as she rushed in and began to examine the pillars, pillows and everything she could find of the temple. Does someone live in here? Who knew about this place? She walked further in while the others walked in reverently. Do you guys worship anyone else? The others looked to where Alvia was standing before a group of statues. No, we only worship the Great Serpent, Gloriosa confirmed for Alvia. These names, Buddha, Lilith, Invidia, Merlin, Dji Awalix, Futsanushi and War. There's a name missing though, this space right here. Alvia pointed to a blank slate in between Merlin and Dji. Do you recognize any of these names? Gloriosa shook her head. No, I do not. There's a 9th statue, a serpent and woman hybrid. The Boa sisters recognized it as a Gorgon. But only Hancock had an inkling for the answer needed. Medusa, she said out loud, and a hiss filled the air as the stone carved itself the name. Behind the statues a pair of eyes glowed and the great serpent appeared before them all. Alvia stepped back in shock while the 3 of the 4 Kuja kneeled in reverence, except for Hancock who smiled widely at the sight. Finally! My temple is restored. The names of my friends remembered. My connection to my Kuja brought back to life. Oh, this is a wonderful day. Now I won't need to expend so much power to speak to them. Finally. The great serpent yelled out in joy, moving about in the air as it circled around the group of women. Gigi, great serpent. Gloriosa yelled out in shock. Gloriosa, one of my previous empresses, oh, it is so good to be able to finally speak to you in the flesh. The great serpent said as her mouth opened up and a pair of human arms reached out and grabbed the top and bottom and pulled, bringing the top half of a human woman out, although her scales and serpent hair certainly destroyed any semblance of human appearance beyond that. The serpent's mouth covered her waist, the only thing that resembled clothing on her body. Let me see you with my own eyes, let me see you properly, Gloriosa. She cupped Gloriosa's face gently and smiled at her widely. What you have done for Hancock and her sisters, advising them, even after your time as Empress you still serve the Kuja faithfully. If only you had given yourself time to continue your training, let me help you start on that. Her hands began to glow and then Gloriosa did as well. For several seconds the former Empress glowed before she began to grow. When the glowing died down, Gloriosa's appearance had completely changed. She was now taller, her muscles restored to her former glory, her gray hair done up in a long braid decorated with flowers. She had few wrinkles, but her age still showed through the wisdom in her eyes. Her clothes had been grown to accommodate her new size. She looked as if she had been continuing with her training for all the years she hadn't been. What, great serpent? Gloriosa was at a loss for words. I will not do more after this, you must keep with your training. But you are still needed by the Kuja, do not forget your oath to them, the great serpent said as she gently kissed Gloriosa's forehead, like a mother would her child. Sandersonia Marigold, you two have done so well. Serving your sister, protecting the Kuja, a reward is necessary for you. My friend Invidia used this blade Marigold. She pulled out a blade from her serpent body. It was a large blade with a skull at the point between the hilt and the blade. It did not have a point, only a single edge. She claimed this after facing her counterpart, Nemesis. Use it well when a warrior manages to get past your mighty spear. Thank you, great serpent. Marigold gently grabbed the hilt of the sword and held it reverently. Sandersonia, my wise friend Merlin used this cloak to protect himself from danger. It kept him safe from the madness spell that Zeus forced Dionysus and Bacchus to use against the great heroes. It even managed to stop Excalibur. Reaching into herself she brought out a beautiful blue cloak. Handing it over to Sandersonia, the color shifted a light green that complemented Sandersonia's hair. Thank you, great serpent. Sandersonia could feel herself begin to cry as she held the cloak close to herself. The great serpent reached out and brought the both of them in for a tight hug. I am so proud of you too. The way you fought against the Gorgon, stand tall and proud. Gently letting them go and kissing their foreheads, she slithered over to Hancock and gently gripped her shoulders. Hancock, when your wish to speak with me the first time I knew you were ready. Your wish brought me to you, gave the power necessary, but now I can properly prepare you for your ascension. Dji was a beautiful woman, but she was deadly. When her natural claws no longer worked, she used these. The great serpent once more reached into her jaws and brought out a pair of gloves, although they only covered the top part of the hand. At the middle part of the fingers were blades. Use these well, I know they will give you the edge you need. Hancock softly grabbed the gloves and put them on. Flexing them slightly, the blades let out a beautiful sound as they rubbed against each other until the gloves retracted into bracelets. Thank you for this weapon, great serpent. I will use it in protection of our Kuja. Great serpent kissed her forehead and moved over to Alvia, who backed away. Why, you're a god, a real god. Great serpent smiled at her softly. Nico Alvia, you have allowed my temple to see the light of sun once again, reconnecting me with my Kuja. Those names you see, they are the names of my friends. They died long ago during the War of the Divine, killing the Great One Cthulhu. They broke my and Medusa's curse, allowing us to be able to look others in the eye once again. I owe them so much. They even awoke my father, allowing him to make Amazon Lily. But the history of these statues is but one thing I wish to give you. Great Serpent brought her hands together to form a bowl and channeled her power into it, creating a sphere. The sphere was blank for a few moments, before an image appeared of a young woman wearing a cowboy hat. While fate has decided that it is not yet time for you to reunite with her, I can show you how she is doing. Robin, Alvia said breathlessly as she felt her eyes water. She's grown so much, she's still got a tan. Look at her hair, it's so long. Her lips trembled as her tears fell. Why can't I find her? Great Serpent gave her a sad look. She is destined to join a great crew, but it has not yet happened yet. Time will pass though. It will come, and after one of the 3 pillars falls to the abyss you will reunite with her upon a great ship. You'll make sure she'll live to see her daughter again, won't you, Garp? Great Serpent looked to the entrance, the others following her gaze, to see Garp standing there, the rest of the crew right behind him. When you had Death explain to me that it was finally time to tell the others, I didn't think this was how it was going to be, Garp said as he stepped in. Kuma kept Ginny close to him, and Kazan ran up to Alvia to hug as her body was racked with sobs at finally seeing her daughter again. I'll make sure she sees her daughter again. Great Serpent smiled and slithered over to Saris. You are the soulmate of Sandersonia, you'll be taking this. She held a necklace out to Saris. Upon it was a serpent medallion with green, red, and blue jewels decorating it. She passed a twin of it to Sandersonia. These will allow you to privately communicate without any trouble. It will create an image when activated, allowing you two to see each other. Take good care of my Kuja, Sarah's Victoria. Great Serpent returned to the shadows behind the statues. Hancock, you and the Kuja can return to here whenever you need to. I will talk to you all, she said before fully disappearing. Garp's crew and Gloriosa all turned to look at him. Garp, wanna tell us something? Bogart asked. Only for Garp to let out a loud snore as he had fallen asleep standing up. You asshole! Belmere yelled and punched him on the top of the head. Wake up and explain what the fuck we just saw. Garp woke up and looked around at the others. He let out a sigh. When I first disappeared that night 5 years ago, I was visited by the personification of my grandson's wish. He told me of a future where he was tortured, his entire crew and all of his friends and loved ones killed before him, so many things. They took his smile, his happiness. The thought of him not smiling, that the Marines broke him like they did, it snapped any reason I had to stay as a Marine, especially when the wish told me that I couldn't change things as a Marine. So, I made my choice, left that night and got started. They gave me this book to help me know what I have to do in order to change things. Garp took the book out from its bag and held it before him. Then I met the gods. And I don't know when I fully decided to dash. You didn't decide to, you just went beyond the initial plan we laid out because that's who you are, Death said from where she appeared leaning against the pedestal the statue stood on. You, Guillaume said pointing at her. Hello Death, Garp said nodding to her. I began going after other things to do because I need to do a lot to make up for all my time as a Marine doing nothing. Because I need to protect as many people as I can from them, stopping things I've wanted gone for so long. The others looked at Garp understandingly before looking at Death when she let out a chuckle. I'm just here to tell you all one thing, we did nothing to get you to join Garp. We only ever guided Kuzan and Bogart to the bar where you guys met up with him. You made your choices of your own will. If you want to ask him any other questions you're welcome to, but he won't say anything about the wish or us unless we choose to reveal ourselves. And Garp, you still owe me Kong's life for getting that Gorgon for you, although Great Serpent certainly helped. Have fun everyone, gods are real, by gold bye. Death appeared in an explosion of ravens, leaving all of them in the temple. Garp, what the actual fuck did we get into? Lami asked. Death walked the streets with a smirk while playing with one of her rings. Sky walked alongside her. So what's the plan with this one? I only had a plan with Van Augur, the others I'm just winging it. Death chuckled as Sky grew a tick mark. But it'll be quick. So, I've been hearing that you're working on a plan of your own. What's going on? A suspicion of mine, although it gained more ground after the discovery of Callisto. And with music, it's just some insurance, Sky said as he knit his hands behind his head and leaned it against them. I heard Serpent helped him finally reveal the truth to his crew. How are they taking it? Death chuckled. Better than you were expecting. Their attention was drawn to an explosion as people yelled out about apples. You seeing him and his horse? He's going that way. Sky nudged his chin to the right and Death walked there. Blacksmith and Forger would probably love to figure out how he made the apple bombs. Should we take some for when they come back? You were already going to do that anyway, although I don't think they'll have an answer as to why Sun entered into the cycle alongside the others. Have you found any answers? Death tilted her head as more explosions came off and more yells about apples happened. Nothing. When Ocean returned I thought she'd be able to tell us, but she didn't know either. Sun had so many means of connecting with mortals unlike the others and he always used them. It doesn't make sense why he entered into the cycle. The others did it so that they could better help mortals, but he had that knowledge already, Sky said, letting out a frustrated sigh. Death shrugged. He always had means to see things that we didn't. Whatever he's trying to do by entering into the cycle, we'll figure it out either when it happens or when he comes back. Walking into an alleyway they say a very ill man with an equally ill horse who was chuckling to himself. Taking her ring off it transformed into a spear. Rushing forward she jumped up and stabbed both through the chest then lifted them up impaled on spear and with a swipe sent both flying into the street and slamming into a wall. Sky grabbed Death's shoulder and with a burst of wind they appeared on a distant rooftop. Could you not have left Doc Q and Stronger in the alleyway? He asked as they watched people screaming and Marines trying to bring order back. Look, he managed to get to Sabaody, I'm not giving him a chance to get to New World. And sorry if I wanted to remind the Marines that they haven't regained control of Sabaody since Garp was here. Death let out a loud laugh. Do you see them running around like headless chickens? And here come the pirates. Any remaining trust from the people of Sabaody will be gone soon. Let's see how things go from there, Death said. So, Tyr's sword, Ho Yi's bow and arrows and now Anne her spear. Why are you using your personal weapons instead of just using something simple? Sky asked as they jumped down from the rooftop and began to walk through the panicking masses. Felt fitting, and because it's not often I get to use them outside of collecting, Death shrugged as both she and Sky disappeared from the sight of everyone as though they were never there before. Amazon Lily, the granting wish. Garp and the crew all sat in the ship's dining room in silence. Since yesterday's revelation they hadn't been talking to Garp. If what has come to light changes your position on being part of this crew, I'll find a good island for you to depart on. Belmere walked up to Garp and slapped him upside the head with a rolled-up map. As if. Told you Garp, I'll follow you till the end, Bogard said with a smirk. Kazan let out a laugh. Just because apparently we're doing the work of gods doesn't mean I'm gonna stop after all the good we're doing. Tom grumbled, as if I'll leave you alone with my ship. And I still need to get back at Spamdan. Alvia shook her head. I chose to follow you Garp instead of Tom and I leaving, and I don't regret or having any intention of changing the choice. I have no intention of leaving Garp, you are my captain. Kuma nodded at Garp. Sarah smiled. I've trusted you since the Marines and that trust hasn't broken ever. Tsuru trusts and believes in you and I believe in you. Gion crossed her arms and sked. Belmere whacked Garp with the map again. You do insane shit like this all the time. Why would this change me being on your crew? Lami laughed loudly. I told you old man you're stuck with me. Wah, Garp chuckled. Alright, we'll be heading out in the morning, so we have a party tonight with Hancock, and is this an official welcome for Ginny? Garp and the others looked to Ginny, who was sitting on Kuma's shoulder like a parrot. Duh. We're gonna be kicking world government ass together. She cheered with a raised fist, getting the others to laugh alongside her. The night air was bright with laughter as the Kuja and the Constellation crew partied. Hancock watched from her throne as Sarah's danced with Sandersonia and Marigold was sparring with some of the Kuja in a show. This is a wonderful sight. It is, Garp said as he offered a drink to her and clinked pints with Gloriosa before they both began drinking them. They downed their drinks in a few short seconds. I'll go get some more, Gloriosa said as she took Garp's cup and left. Are you ready for what's soon to come? Garp asked Hancock as he sat back. Hancock tilted her head up to the sky, to the stars. I know I am, you trained me after all. My ships are in position. Green is ready to send the signal out to all the surviving rebels, and I have my weapons. Hancock summoned forth her snakes and with a flick of her wrist her claw gloves came out. Victory is assured. But what about what comes after? You prepared for that too, Hancock said with a smirk, and the money you gave certainly helps. I'm ready to become an emperor of the sea. Good. Here's one final lesson to you, Garp said, capturing her full attention. There will come a day when someone stronger than you comes along, you know this. You know you can rely on your crew, your allies, and your family. But never forget to trust your ship. My ship. Give it the love and care it deserves and it will give that back to you. It is your greatest weapon and shield, your home. When all else fails it'll be there for you. Garp gave a smile to the granting wish sitting in the dock near the perfume Yuda. Hancock looked at her ship, and for a moment it felt as though it was smiling at her and waving. A strange final lesson, teacher, but thank you. Belmere let out a loud laugh and jumped up on top of the table as Bogard, Guion, and Kuzan started playing some instruments, grabbing everyone's attention. We're gonna be drinking all night long. We're gonna be drinking, not alone. We're gonna be drinking all night long. We're gonna be drinking, not alone. Kuzan and Bogard jumped in and smiled widely as everyone quickly got into the song. Belmere held her cup up high, until the rising morning sun. We're gonna be drinking all night long. We're gonna be drinking, not alone. She sang as she danced on the table. Until the rising morning sun. We're gonna be drinking all night long. We're gonna be drinking, not alone. Kuzan and Bogard sang out proudly before letting the instruments take over. Belmere pulled Sarah's into the dance. We're gonna be working day and night. We're gonna be working muscles tight. They both flexed their arms, showing off the muscles, much to Sandersonia's delight as her eyes were glued to her girlfriend's dancing body. We're gonna be working day and night. We're gonna be working muscles tight. Bogard and Kuzan repeated as they danced around each other while playing. Until the day we win fight. We're gonna be working day and night. We're gonna be working muscles tight. Belmere took a swig of her drink and raised it up while Sarah's lifted Sandersonia up in a bridal carry, much to her joy. Until the day we win fight. We're gonna be working day and night. We're gonna be working muscles tight. The pair went into another belt of the instruments talking as others joined them in their dancing circle. We're gonna be fighting hard as stone. We're gonna be dying, not alone, Garp sang out as he joined Belmere on the table. Belmere smiled wide. We're gonna be fighting hard as stone. We're gonna be dying, not alone. We kill the king and take the throne. We're gonna be fighting hard as stone. We're gonna be dying, not alone, Garp sang proudly as he and Belmere linked elbows. We kill the king and take the throne, we're gonna be fighting hard as stone, we're gonna be dying, not alone. Everyone joined in and Sarah's let out a loud howl as she and Ginny both kissed their respective partners, to their blushing delight. We're gonna be drinking all night long, we're gonna be drinking, not alone. To everyone's surprise, Hancock sang out as she joined the other two on the table and danced along to the music. We're gonna be drinking all night long, we're gonna be drinking, not alone. Until the rising morning sun, we're gonna be drinking all night long, we're gonna be drinking, not alone. Hancock took over from Belmere as the song neared its conclusion, lifting up her own cup. Until the rising morning sun, we're gonna be drinking all night long, we're gonna be drinking, not alone. Everyone sang along with her as the song ended and let out cheers. Today we say goodbye to our teachers and friends. Hancock began her toast, and soon we rid ourselves of any control the world government dared to try and put on us. My Kuja, thanks to Nico Alvia we are reunited with the Great Serpent. Thanks to Kazan and Sarah's we will have our territory. Thanks to Garp we are ready to fight. To our teachers. To our teachers. The Kuja raised their glasses. To our friends. Hancock yelled out, raising her glass higher. To our friends. To our victory. Hancock raised the glass as high as her arm could reach before downing it all. To our victory. Everyone yelled out and drank from their cups. The granting wish rested, hidden within a cove of an uninhabited island. Most of the crew stood on deck at the ready as they waited. Bogart flew down from the sky. Your suspicions were correct, they are using slaves to make the ammo, he told Garp. Garp nodded. Okay, inform the army ships that they are needed. Kuma, be ready to launch them to the safe haven if need be. Kuma nodded from where he sat. Dragon and Hancock will be attacking once we give them our signal. We are doing 3 major attacks today, are all of you ready? There's one other thing, Bogart spoke up. I saw the coat of an admiral, I think they're preparing to send out a new shipment. Kazan grunted, then let's move. We can't let them send out any more. Alvia nodded, so what's the plan, Garp? I'll handle the admiral, you guys get the slaves out and plant the explosives. Kazan, cripple any marine ships in the dock and get them out of the way. Saris, take care of their long range and keep the marines from grabbing any of the slaves or taking hostages. Ginny, send the signal to the others, let's move. Garp gave instructions and Belmere immediately began moving the ship. Bogart took back to the air and flew back to the factory. He pulled out his katana and cut down his way into the lighthouse. They usually would send out shipments at night, using the lighthouse to guide the ship to them. Destroying the main light, he began to make his way down as a marine ran up to him, only to be cut down. The body fell over the railing into the room below. Bogart jumped over it and used his wings to slow his descent as he heard a loud crash and someone cursing. He tucked his wings in and fell the rest of the way. Once near the ground he spun in a circle and decapitated the group of Marines around the body of their fallen comrade. Standing tall he gave a quick glance around himself for any more enemies but found none. He could hear the fighting begin already outside as he unsheathed his Tonto blade and stepped out. The Marine ships docked had been impaled by ice and pushed into the factory, making room for the army ships. Kuma was ushering slaves onto the ships while Alvia and Guion ran around planting the explosives. Bogart sighed, this is going to be rather easy, they've been hidden for so long their defenses aren't in good condition. Suddenly Garp crashed through a wall fighting a massive tree man, Nemia clawing and biting at the bark. You'll pay for your crimes against the gods, Garp. Admiral Greenbull yelled out. Shut up. Garp yelled at him, meteor shower. He delivered dozens of fast-paced punches that sent Greenbull flying into another wall and not getting up. With Dragon scouting stun, you can begin the attack. Ginny's voice spoke from the den. Dragon smirked and turned to look at the rest of the commanders and their seconds. Are all of you ready? They responded with a cheer and the ships immediately moved. They had finished their own scouting, and there wasn't anyone to save at the storage island. Open fire. Dragon ordered and the ships began to fire on it. They wouldn't have any files, Karasu confirmed that already, Dragon thought to himself. Marine ships are moving, don't let any of them get away. He sent out the order and his commanders moved to attack. South Blue with Hancock on the Perfume Uda. Scouting stun, you can begin the attack. Hancock listened to the signal and smirked. Inform my fleet, have them at the ready to attack the few Marine ships left in the blue, and are your people ready, Green? Hancock turned to the only man on her ship who let out a chuckle. Green smirked, just waiting for you to give the signal. What will you be doing? Handling the 2 admirals that are stationed here and their main base. Most of my fleet will be fighting their smaller bases and their few ships. You best go below deck. Hancock smiled as the base came within sight. Send out the signal, begin the attack, claim my territory. Hancock stood up from her throne and walked to the front of her ship as they docked. Warlord Hancock, what are you doing here? Admiral Doberman asked, hands on the hilts of his blades. Sandersonia, shoot the flag down, Hancock ordered. Before Doberman could react, Sandersonia had taken aim with her Halkonen and fired, destroying the flag of the world government. I resign from the warlords and I'll be taking the South Blue with me. Doberman unsheathed his blades. You'll pay for that, you witch. He ran at her and brought his blade down on her, but it was stopped by Marigold's sword. He was pushed back and he stumbled as Marines came out, ready to fight. Mamanga, Enigmo. We need to stop this pirate. 3 admirals? The third must have arrived just recently. No matter. Marigold, Sandersonia, lead my Kuja to victory, she gave her orders. Marigold twirled her spear around and sliced several Marines in half. Of course, sister, rally to me, Kuja. The Kuja with blades and clubs grouped around her as they began to make their way to the gate of the base. Don't try it. Doberman yelled out, but he was kicked by Hancock in the side. Your fight is with me, admirals, and no one else. Hancock flipped her hair back as she smirked. Mamanga and Enigmo stepped forward to Doberman's sides. Are you okay, Doberman? Mamanga asked. I'm fine. What are you trying to do here, Hancock? Hancock let out a melodic laugh. I am putting all of the training teacher gave me to the fullest, and taking my rightful place as an emperor of the sea, she declared loudly as arrows and bullets fired around her. She flew forward and kicked at Mamanga while slamming the palm of her hand into Doberman's face, breaking his nose. She twirled, using armament hockey on her leg to block Enigmo's incoming blade. As he struggled against her block, she flicked her wrists and stabbed them forward into his neck. His eyes widened in shock as she closed her hand into a fist, creating a large hole in his throat. No! Doberman yelled out. He rushed forward while Mamanga prioritized helping his Marines against the Kuja. Hancock used the blades of her gloves to deflect Doberman's swords as she looked around. The Kuja defended each other, working together and getting the injured back to the ship as necessary. Sandersonia stood at the prow, firing her Halkonen as necessary at the Marines that tried to attack the ship. Marigold was at the front lines, protecting the Kuja with her spear, blood constantly dripping from its blade since the battle had started. Doberman kicked her in the gut and pushed her away. Hancock righted herself and rushed back at him, slicing at him. He dodged back, but the tips nicked his clothes. She somersaulted and kicked the top of his head, slamming him into the ground. She kept her hand straight and stabbed down, but he managed to move, so she stabbed into his side instead of his chest. He let out a grunt of pain, but he sliced at her. She grabbed his blade with her free hand and gripped on it, shattering it. Doberman tried to attack with his other blade, but she ripped her glove, impaled in his side out, worsening his wound. As she moved her hand, she deflected his blade to the side, then sliced at his stomach, cutting it open and letting his organs out. He tried to grab at and keep them in, dropping his last sword as he grappled with his organs, fear finally showing in his eyes as he fought in vain to live. Hancock sliced at his neck, removing his head. You'll pay for that, Mamanga said as he pointed his blade at her. First Roanoke, now this Garp. You have inspired 2 warlords to leave, not even meeting one of them, and still she stands tall, believing that she can become an emperor of the sea. This needs to end soon before we lose all sense of order. Admiral Mamanga, this will be interesting. Hancock smiled in excitement. He had recently managed to escape from Garp thanks to the efforts of the new warlord, and now he was here. You won't be lucky enough to escape again. Before Mamanga could wonder what she had meant by that, she lashed out at him, slicing part of his mustache off. He sliced at her, but she dodged around him, kicking his side and turning it to stone once she noticed his blind spot. He thrust his blade to the side. She moved to the side and punched him, creating 4 cuts on his face. He stumbled back and she sent several rapid kicks at him, turning more parts of his body to stone. Mamanga struggled to lift his arm, his shoulder turned to stone. Hancock struck his shoulder and it shattered. Mamanga screamed as though there was no blood, it still hurt. She hit several more petrified spots, shattering each of them until Mamanga could only stand there, body riddled with holes. My teacher and his swordswoman expressed their dislike of your escape from them when they had fought you at Roanoke. I'll be happy to inform them of your death. Mamanga's eyes widened as he fully grasped Hancock's words in his final words. Garp? Garp is your teacher? He asked, his eyes shaking in fear at what that meant. Hancock smirked at him and struck his head, turning it to stone, then shattering it. Empress. One of her Kuja ran up to her and held out a golden snail. The button had been pressed. Admiral Enigmo had this on him, he must have pressed it in his final moments. Hancock immediately looked to the horizon and saw the incoming ships. Humph, the cowards. Secure this base and send out the signal to my fleet, the South Blue is my territory. Hancock summoned her snakes around her and the massive snake flew at the 10 approaching ships. It opened its maw and bit one of the ships in half as it circled around the others. The small snakes worked alongside her Kuja to clean up the Marines as Hancock watched on, as her massive snake destroyed the ships called for the buster call. She smiled widely, inform Elder Nyan to begin claiming territory within Paradise, it's time to fully secure the South Com Belt as our territory. She yelled out the order and her Kuja let out a cheer. She stepped up onto her ship as the reports came in of her Kuja and the other new members of her fleet routing the Marines. Empress, Elder Nyan reported that a Marine arrived at Amazon Lily. She's currently being held prisoner. She came with a letter from Admiral Tsuru, a Kuja reported to her. Hancock arched an eyebrow. Admiral Tsuru? What could she have wanted? Hancock directed them to head to Smith 18. I'll handle it later, we must secure our position first. Tsuru stalked down the ramp and to the gates of Impel Down, glaring at each staff member of the prison as she passed them. Admiral Tsuru, this is a dash. Where is she? Tsuru cut Domino off. Where is Kajaku? Suddenly a scream ripped through all the other screams of Impel Down. And oh, no more. I'm done. Domino sighed sadly. This way, Admiral. She led Tsuru deeper into the prison. Let me go. I can't. Kajaku's screams echoed throughout the prison. How long? Tsuru snarled. After your visit to oversee the executions 2 days, she broke down. Domino told her as they stepped into the elevator and it began to go down. Let me jump. Let me die. Kajaku's screams grew louder as they neared her. I won't do this anymore. Why was I not contacted? Tsuru growled out as she tapped her foot impatiently. Domino gulped, taking a small step away from Tsuru. You'll need to ask Warden Magellan, I don't know the details. The warmth began to increase as the elevator stopped at level 4 and the doors opened to Hannibal holding onto a struggling Kajaku. Kajaku, stop, it's okay. Saldeth tried to comfort her. No more. I can't keep living. Kajaku couldn't even hear him, her eyes wide and manic. Magellan was standing in front of Hannibal as he slowly backed away from the pit of fire, just in case she managed to get out of his grip. Magellan. Explain to me why you failed to contact me when she had her first breakdown, and so help me if you do not have a proper answer, I will throw you in that pit. Tsuru spit out venom at Magellan. The head warden wilted under Tsuru's glare. Well, I tried to, but I was told you were busy. I kept trying, but then Admiral Kong dash. Kong does not speak for me. If you could not reach me via Den, you should have sent a letter, a report, or someone in person to get me. Tsuru yelled at him and Magellan wilted further under her tirade. You should have known that I do not work with Impel Down through anyone. I handle it myself. You should have suspected something was wrong when I did not answer. Now tell me why my granddaughter is trying to kill herself before I have you permanently demoted to latrine duty for the prison. Magellan took a deep breath. Kajaku's first breakdown simply had her staring at a wall for several hours, not responding to anything. It slowly grew worse, from sitting in the corner in the fetal position, to cutting herself, and then she reached the point of trying to commit suicide. We've done what we can to help her, but dash. Shit. Hannibal screamed out as Kajaku finally got out of his grip and made a run for the pit. Tsuru grabbed her and hit the back of her head and she fell unconscious. Sadie immediately used her whip to tie Kajaku up. I'll take her up to level 1, Hannibal said and carefully picked her up. Tsuru was visibly shaking in rage as she watched Hannibal go into the elevator with Domino and head up. Magellan, you are going to help me reassign Kajaku to a new position outside of Impel Down. I don't care the rules and protocols you break, you will do it. I'll handle where she goes, just do your end of the work to get her removed from here today. Magellan nodded. Where will you be sending her? Plausible deniability for you, don't ask, don't look, ignore it all if you know what's best for her, Tsuru told him as she stalked up the stairs. I'd recommend you all look into leaving the employ of the world government. They don't care for anyone but the Celestials. They will happily kill you without a second thought. Present, Amazon Lily. Hancock stood in front of the cell that held Kajaku as she finished reading the letter from Tsuru. I owe your grandmother a debt and she is using it for you. What? Kajaku tilted her head as she carefully drank the tea provided to her. She was calm despite being surrounded by enemies. She could hear music and revelry, no screams, people were happy. The direct opposite of Impel Down, This was literal heaven to her. Empress, Elder Gloriosa has reported that they have claimed 2 more islands and are moving on to the final one. We'll soon have fully claimed the area necessary to have the Southcom belt counted among our territory, Akuja ran up and told her. Understood, send Sandersonia to aid her, Hancock instructed. The past few days they had been fully securing the South Blue as her territory, and once she had returned to Amazon Lily, she sent out Gloriosa into paradise. Your grandmother put me in contact with our teacher, who taught us everything that allowed me to ascend to becoming an emperor of the sea. This letter states that she wants me to take you among my crew, calling in my debt to her to do so. Hancock gestured to the letter on the tea tray. That letter is for you. I won't force you to join me, but I will at least ensure you do not return to the world government. Kujaku opened the letter and began to read, Grandma. Kujaku, I know you have questions. I'll answer what I can when next we see each other. Kong screened the calls from Impel Down to me, prevented me from learning of your plight until I arrived at Impel Down to question them on why they had not contacted me. Garp ran into me in Alabasta where I helped him make contact with Hancock, in exchange for taking Gion onto his crew. After I secured her departure from the world government, I began working with Sengoku to get you out. But complications arose with the elders permanently stationing you at Impel Down. But what I saw when I showed up at Impel Down, I had to throw all of our plans out and get you out, consequences be damned. Hancock will keep you safe, join her crew or take up residence on Amazon Lily as a citizen, but do not return to the world government. I will be fine, take care of yourself. I love you so much and I'm sorry I have to take away your dream. With all of my love, Grandma Tsuru. Tears fell onto the letter and Kujaku moved the letter out of the way as she rubbed at her eyes. I don't know what I want to be anymore. Hancock opened the door and walked in and extended her hand out to Kujaku. Join my crew, you will have many sisters to fight alongside, you can choose what you do, and you can see the sun as much as you want. Kujaku looked at Hancock's outstretched hand hesitantly, but then she looked back at Tsuru's letter. Her eyes hardened in determination. I'll join you. She took Hancock's hand and stood up. Captain, I'll do what I can. Belmir checked the map again and then looked at Garp's directions. Are you sure Garp made this? Is it upside down or something? She asked Kazan, who was drinking some coffee. Kazan let out a sigh as he finished his sip. Nope, I triple-checked, then checked with him. He was really insistent on it. What's wrong with them? It just doesn't make any sense. It actually takes us away from the routes to Sabaody. It takes us to an unnamed island. I asked Alvia if she had heard anything about it and nothing. Belmir shook her head. Did he say anything about why he wanted to go there? Kazan shook his head and downed the rest of his coffee. Nope, just that he wanted to go there before heading to New World. I don't get it either. I mean, sure, he's got his weird wants, but since he started this, they've always been about going after the world government, like how he wanted to get to have killed at least 10 Celestials because he wanted to be in double digits, and how he decided now to do the task of making a new emperor after destroying the auction house. His habits make him unpredictable, then you factor in that he's working with gods whose names people have forgotten, they are so ancient, and I can't figure out what he's trying to do. This doesn't involve us, this is all him, Shaper said, his head appearing out of the bush that had been placed in the helm room. Kuzan and Belmir looked at the head of one of the 2 earth gods as he disappeared back into the bush. Are you going to get used to that? Belmir asked with a sweat drop. Absolutely not. Do you honestly think I ever got used to Garp's weirdness? They're just as weird as him, or is it the other way around? Kuzan scratched the back of his head with a shake. What about you? Fuck no, Belmir swore as she adjusted the course of the as necessary. The amount of stuff that is now proven to actually exist just by knowing the gods exist is terrifying enough. Fusha Village. Luffy. Luffy put the dynamite down. Rosinante yelled out as he chased after Luffy and Reiju, who were laughing. Luffy carrying a bundle of dynamite. Okay, Law, did you lose a bet or something? Ace asked as he pointed with his thumb at the scene behind them as Luffy and Reiju ran towards Goa. You're the only one who'd be able to get dynamite for him. Wasn't me, Law muttered as he read the newspaper calling Hancock the 5th Emperor of the Sea. I did it, Bonnie sang out with a giggle. He said he was gonna blow up some noble's grave that hurt Sabo, and Reiju had an idea for something funny. She let out a loud laugh. Luffy had quickly helped her assimilate into their group, although Luffy was still the youngest of them. Ace looked at her for a moment before his eyes gained a dangerous glint. Oh no! I'm about to fall from this high place and I could get hurt. He yelled out with faux fear, but it caught Rosinante's attention. Are you okay? The moment he saw that Ace wasn't even sitting somewhere high or even wobbling about like he was going to fall. He immediately looked back to where Luffy and Reiju were, but they had disappeared from sight. Oh no. Ace chuckled. Get fucked out look, he muttered to himself. Law rolled his eyes but smirked. It's the anniversary of when Dad and I got here and when Grandpa Garp officially resigned from the Marines. The noble's grave he mentioned is Outlook's, Sabo's biological father. He was an asshole, Sabo said as he walked up, jostling Bonnie's hair. Every year on the anniversary Luffy does something in Goa. It's always big, loud, and destructive. Always hits the noble district, never anywhere else. I'm pretty sure he blew up the barracks of the soldiers who burned down Grey Terminal for the first anniversary, but we were still having some struggles back then so my memory is a bit hazy, Ichiji said with an awkward smile. Do you remember what he did, Yanji? You'd have to ask Reiju, he roped her into it. Mom was teaching me how to properly pour drinks without them overflowing, Yanji chuckled. He had picked up an interest in cooking, trying to feel a connection to Sanji, but he took better to handling drinks and mixology. I'm pretty sure they burned it down just like they did with Grey Terminal, using similar explosives they had Blue Jam use. Niji shrugged as he hung out from the window, the smell of an apple pie wafting out from around him. He had also taken an interest, but was only able to bake desserts, nothing else, or it became burned. Ichiji nodded, slapping his hand with his fist. That's right. While no one died, some of them did get burned pretty badly. Some of them came into the village to question, but we had gone up into the mountains. They wanted to help me with learning how to hunt. Unlike his two brothers, Ichiji had taken more of an interest in producing ingredients than using them. So, he had been teaching himself how to cultivate while Ace and Sabo taught him how to hunt, since they didn't have devil fruits that gave them abilities they used to hunt, like Luffy. But I'm pretty sure Luffy and Reiju followed the attack up with the destruction of their armory where they blew it up. Drake looked at them with wide eyes. Why are you mentioning Luffy crippling Goa's military like it's an everyday thing? Because it is, Ace, Sabo, Law, Yanji, Ichiji, and Niji all said at the same time. He used their cannons to blow up some of the towers of the king's castle, then used their largest ship to blow up the rest of their ships, Sabo said with a chuckle. It was his idea, but Reiju helped him figure out how to execute it. You're forgetting that they also blew up their armory, Cosette giggled as she handed them all sandwiches. So they attacked the king's castle, destroyed nearly all of their ships, and blew up their armory. She had missed meeting Bonnie the first few days she was here as she was helping her mother with gathering materials for some projects Dayton had in mind for expanding her base. So, what else has he done for the anniversaries? Bonnie asked with a head tilt. The next one, Reiju stole all of the king's jewelry including his crown, then Luffy got Ace and Ichiji to help melt it all down, then Sabo made a mold. Next day there was a statue in the square of Grandpa Garp flipping them off. The jewels Luffy got me to pawn off and we used the money to help expand Aunt Makino's bar, Law explained. Then the last one, he stole the thrones of the royal family and the special seats of the other noble families and hid them around the jungle. They've either been ruined by the animals or claimed, so none of them were reclaimed by their old owners by the time they were found, Sabo added on. So whatever the hell Luffy's come up with this time isn't going to just be him blowing up Outlook's grave? You guys want to take bets on what he does? Ace smirked at the others. Closest to what he does wins. A large hand plopped onto Ace's shoulder. Ace, Rosinante said, his eyes hidden. 10 belly on Luffy blowing up their new ships. And you'll be handling Cosette's chores for the next 4 days. He moved to walk away, not noticing that his coat had somehow caught on fire despite there being no fire near him. Drake held his head. How is this normal to me already? How has this happened? 20 belly on Luffy using their cannons for something. The granting wish. Land ahead. Belmere yelled into the announcement system as she moved so they could set the ramp down. The island Garp had directed them to was barren except for something further in that Belmere couldn't make out. She set anchor and the ramp rolled out, and after double-checking that everything was secure, she walked out to the deck. So is this like your hidden fortune that you gave Hancock or something, old man? Lamy asked as the rest of the crew joined Belmere on the deck. Garp looked at the island with a sad expression, his hockey picking up on 2 familiar presences. No, I wouldn't disrespect this place by doing something like that. The rest of the crew looked at him questioningly, but he began to walk down the ramp and towards those things in the distance. Garp? Bogard asked, concerned for his captain. Garp didn't respond, he just continued to walk further into the island and the others followed after him. As they neared Garp's objective, they were able to make out what they had been seeing in the distance. A graveyard? Guion asked, kneeling down to look at a tombstone. Kuma and Ginny looked at a group of them. Garp, what is this place? Kuma asked. Are these people your friends? Ginny asked. Knew you'd come here eventually, glad we ran into you when you did, Sengoku said as he laid some flowers down in front of a few graves, catching the rest of the crew's attention upon his presence. Garp hummed as he looked at the graves sadly. Hello Seni, Tsuru, they haven't been damaged, have they? No. Tsuru shook her head from where she was sitting. Most people aren't aware of the island, so there hasn't been any danger to them. The couple is also safe. When do you think you can check in on them again? Garp shrugged. I don't know. The rest of the crew slowly relaxed as they realized that the two Marines weren't here as enemies. It's good to see you, Tsuru, Gion said as she sat next to Tsuru. Garp, what is this place? Kazan asked as he looked closer at the names and ages on the tombstones. Something was familiar about them. This is where we buried all the women and children that were killed during the hunt for Roger's child, Garp revealed. The crew gasped. What? But there's so many, Alvia exclaimed as she looked around. Kong, the fleet admiral before me, suggested it to the 5 elders once the possible existence of the child of gold Roger came to light, Sengoku confided as he brushed some dirt off of one of the tombstones. When I took the position soon after they had already begun it and I was unable to stop it. I tried to do what I could to keep the women and children taken alive, but the cruelty of Marines cost many of them their lives. Sengoku's fist shook. He had tried to punish those Marines, but some of them were protected and extended their protection to others. We picked this island to bury them safely without anyone trying to desecrate it thinking they were a lover or possible child of Roger's, Tsuru expanded. We were only able to stop it over a year after it started when it was clear that we wouldn't be able to find Roger's lover or his child, except we technically did, didn't we, Garp? Garp sighed sadly as he walked to a pair of graves separated from the others. Hey Roger Rouge, sorry I haven't visited sooner. The crew's eyes widened. Wait, this is where Roger was buried? Sarah's yelped out. Like I would let them parade his body around, Garp muttered. I would have preferred burying the rest of them somewhere else, but we couldn't find another island. Sengoku got up and stood beside Garp. Rosinante was declared dead a long time ago. It was on Minion Island, right? Doflamingo's pirates and the Barrel pirates, he stole the opope fruit, Garp said softly. Sengoku jerked and looked at Garp. How do you know that? Pretty sure I killed Virgo there, Garp said absent-mindedly. Rosie said that the kids have really been causing some chaos. Wonder what they're going to do today. He asks about you. He was really worried after our fight at Sorbet. So was your grandkid. Sengoku grabbed Garp's shoulders and held him tightly. Garp, what the fuck are you talking about? Garp tilted his head. Rosinante, he said a few days ago that he was helping out around Fusha. Did I forget to give you the letter? What letter? Sengoku asked slowly. The letter about how my first stop after leaving the Marines was Minion Island and Rosinante is alive, and that we're sharing a grandkid now, Garp revealed. Sengoku's eye twitched. God damn it, Garp. And he punched Garp's head. No, I did not get a letter about that. He then immediately pulled him in for a hug. God damn it, Garp, what did I do to get a friend like you? Garp hugged him back. Sorry, I couldn't say anything at Sorbet. Sengoku stepped back with a sigh. Tsuru and I should go, we're planning to retire soon. Garp, thank you. Garp smiled at him. Try to visit him when it's safe, he misses you, and you need to make up for lost time with your grandkid. Tsuru gave Gion a quick hug then walked up and elbowed Garp. Your recent student did good and I was able to use the debt she owes me to get Kajaku out. Sengoku will be retiring, but I have to handle something else first, so you'll be seeing me in uniform again. See ya around, you big lug. She gave him a side hug and then she and Sengoku walked back to their ship. Gion looked back at the graveyard. I'd heard horror stories about the hunt, but I didn't think it was this bad. What was Tsuru talking about, Garp? I told Kuzan and Bogard. Roger asked me to save Rouge and his kid, but Rouge was forced to keep her child in her for 20 months, costing her her life. He's one of my grandkids. Alvia perked up at that. When the embodiment of my grandkid's wish first showed himself to me, I had trouble believing him at first. But the more he talked about what happened in the old timeline, how far the Marines went, I could only remember this. The children they killed with the smallest suspicion that they could be Roger's. The women, they've always gone too far in the past. What they had done in the old timeline was par for the course for them. It was why I could believe the wish, and since you guys know now about everything, you should know as much as I can tell you. Belmir touched a smaller tombstone. Garp, let's break the world government. Yeah, they can go dash. And Lamy let out a creative slew of curses. Let's do this. Garp smiled as the rest voiced their own agreements. You didn't need to explain to us, Bogard told him. We already trust you completely. So let's head to New World to do our work there. The others walked back to the ship to get it ready to set out and Garp followed after them. Thanks Garp, you did good, Roger spoke behind him. Garp looked back and saw Roger and Rouge hugging each other, and the women and children of the graveyard. Wish we could have gone on an adventure together. All of the spirits smiled at him, Roger's the biggest of all as usual. Garp nodded at the spirits. Would have been fun, I'll see you on the other side, Roger. Just don't expect it to happen soon. Give Yumi my love. He walked back to the ship, his head held high. Is it true? Kong asked as he entered Sengoku's office. Sengoku bit into a rice cracker as he signed some forms before him. Is what true, Kong? You're retiring? Kong crossed his arms with a huff. In the next 3 days, the 5 elders told me they'll be temporarily placing you back in your old position while they figure out who will be replacing me. Sengoku shrugged as he finished his small pile of paperwork and moved on to the next one. I'm simply wrapping everything up here before the time comes. Ing will be joining me. We're gonna travel the blues for a bit, starting in East. But you're not here to ask me about my plans, so why are you here? Kong glared at him. Now is not the time to retire, the elders and celestials still need your help. The fleet admiral dash. Don't give me that shit. Sengoku yelled at Kong, sitting up at his desk. You don't get to say anything about my position when you have consistently undermined me since I brought you on as a temporary admiral. Since the time I first took this office with the hunt for Roger's child to most recently when you hid from me what was actually going on in the South and North Blues, actively making their situations worse, which allowed Boa Hancock to become the 5th Emperor of the Sea. Don't say that out loud. We can't recognize her as one dash. We have no choice. Sengoku cut him off again. She meets all of the criteria, and the people already view her as one. We might have had a chance to stop this if we had been able to properly handle the corrupt Marines, but you let them continue, so desperate to keep your status quo. So many things have gone wrong for me since I took office, and I found out you actively worked to ensure that I didn't know anything about the Buster Call factory and storage, one of which had us using slaves. Do you know what that information has done to the reputation of not just the Marines but the office of the Fleet Admiral? People used to trust it, believe in it, but because of you that faith has been burned badly. They've learned exactly how much power I truly have, and to their horror it is very little. That has forced them to either trust in the emperors or form their own militaries that they can trust in, while the countries that already have militaries have been working to fully remove any need for the Marines to be within them. You blame Garp as much as you want for how bad things have gotten, but he's doing what we tried to do quietly for everyone to see, the things you kept us from doing. Enjoy returning to this office, Kong. While my reputation is burned, yours has become ashes. Now get the fuck out. Kong opened his mouth to retort, but he couldn't find anything to say. With a TSK he walked out. Get me in contact with the 5 elders, I need to speak with them, he ordered a nearby marine. Sabaody Archipelago. The Granting Wish docked at Grove 46. I'll stay with the ship, make sure it stays safe, Tom said as he sharpened his harpoon. You sure? Alvia asked, patting his arm comfortingly. Want me to bring you anything? Everyone stays paired up, keep each other in sight, Garp ordered. Without the auction house, slavers lost a massive hold here, and from what I've heard they're being hunted, but they're still around. Any of you willing to stay with Tom? I'll stay, I need to do some work in the orchard, Belmere said, rubbing her head and nursing a headache. Since the graveyard it had started and she couldn't make it stop. Could you guys get me something for my headache? I'd appreciate it. The others nodded. I'll be going to see Rayleigh. Bogard, you'll be with me, Garp said. Resupply, get anything you need and be ready. We'll see how long we need to wait for the coating to be done. The crew, except for Tom and Belmere, walked off and into Sabaody. Garp, I've been wanting to talk with you about something. Since I decided to stop hiding, I've been thinking about the plan to feed my sword a devil fruit. I think Guion would benefit more from it. Bogard told him as people moved out of their way, looking at them in awe or fear, sometimes both. Garp shrugged and patted Bogard's back. It's your choice, just talk to her about before anything. If she doesn't want it, we'll figure something out. How've your wings been? Any damages from the restraints? Bogard flexed his wings. They're stronger, you kept me on a tight training regimen to ensure they didn't degrade after all. Bogard chuckled, remembering the days of hiding away to do the exercises and Garp protecting him. But I'm still getting used to using my flames again, they feel different. Different how? Garp asked, concerned. Contained, caged, I wasn't able to properly practice with it while as a Marine. I lived with a doctrine that went against the Lunarian ways for so many years, and against my own beliefs. Bogard took his hat off and ran a hand through his hair. Garp nodded. I know, it still feels like I'm listening to their propaganda at times, still following it. Kazan, Guion, Belmere, Saris, they've all had a better time breaking away from it than you and I. Bogard nodded his head. Should we try to visit Mrs. Yumi at some point? Bogard had known Yumi before her death. She had been his friend despite him never dropping the honorific with her. I still feel so guilty that we never found anything on her murderer. I want to apologize to her. You know she hated needless apologies, Garp said softly. We did everything possible to find anything on them, but they were skilled at hiding any possible tracks. If we didn't try to find answers, then we would owe her an apology. Even then she would have scolded us for apologizing instead of doing something. Garp chuckled sadly. Bogard shook his head fondly. She was always about actions over words, moving like the tides and affecting everyone wherever she went. It actually made sense that she was a revolutionary. Bogard let out a dry laugh. Shaggy's rip-off bar came into sight and Garp quickened his pace. Shaggy, how are you doing? Garp called out as he entered. Good to see you, Garp. I hope the journey wasn't tough for you. Shaggy laughed and poured him and Bogard drinks. Rayleigh should be back soon. He went out to handle some marines and pirates causing trouble. I think his bounty will be unfrozen soon. Garp laughed, knew he couldn't stay out of trouble. Another. A patron yelled out. Garp looked over and saw Sky. He gave him a wink as Shaggy poured some mead into his cup. So anything happened here since you two returned? Bogard asked as he drank his whiskey. We had a troublemaker, Doc Q, handing out explosive apples to people. Some vigilante killed him and his horse, quite brutally too, Shaggy chuckled. Since then the Marines haven't been able to keep the island under any sort of control. Sabaody has become a completely different island since your attack. Only once Celestial tried to come here and ended up injured and rushed away. I think his name was Charlos. Really? We just destroyed his family's vacation home, Garp smirked. Course you did, Rayleigh said as he entered. Good to see you, Garp. Here to have your ship coated? Yeah, how long should it take? Garp said as he gave him a folded piece of paper. Rayleigh opened it and his eyes widened before he put it into his coat pocket. 3 days, think your crew can handle the weight? Bogard huffed. Well, we'll probably be handling the Marines and pirates here while we wait. Let's go see what the others have gotten up to. He downed the rest of his drink and got up. Marie Gios. What do you want, Kong? Mars asked. Kong stood up from his bow. I have a plan to kill Garp and end his influence. I will need the aid of Admirals Akainu and Kizaru as well as Warlord Doflamingo. We will fight at Dressrosa. And how are you so certain you will be able to kill him? Nushjiro inquired. His berserker status, I know the means to turn it against him and it will mean his death. Kong spoke confidently. I never thought I would reveal this, but it will put Garp down like the rapid dog that he is. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Support the writer. Don't forget to like, sub, share and donate for more videos.